Hello, beautiful people. You are listening to the Communal Table podcast, part of Food and Wine Pro. I'm your host, Kat Kinsman, senior editor at Food and Wine. My guest today, I slid into her DMs a month or so ago because I'd been thinking about a dish that she made since I think it was May. She made a dessert at the gala dinner for MoFad for an upcoming exhibition called From Africa to America, and she made a. We'll get further into the details of this particular cake, but let's say I ate it with my hands and haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Welcome, Jessica Craig.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So nailing down your title here, executive pastry chef at L'Artusi, and
Yes.
Some other side things you do too.
So I'm executive pastry chef at L'Artusi restaurant, and I don't really have any side gigs going on.
Well, the ricotta, let's say the ricotta.
Oh, well, yes, I do
You
make
just
ricotta for
downplayed
for our restaurant as well as L'Artusi as well. That's our number one seller.
Yeah, and I was just laughing about that because she sort of downplayed that, and I'm like, that ricotta is a big deal. Like, don't sell yourself short on that.
I really shouldn't because we sell a lot.
Okay, let's say what a lot, like, is that like gallons worth? Is that like...
For sure, because our batch that we make is probably, how many gallons? It's 14, probably like a 20 half-gallon batch.
Oh my goodness.
It's probably bigger than that. I'm probably downplaying it a lot. My math is probably so off. But we sell, we canal it when we sell it, and we probably go through, on a slow night, anywhere between 40 to 50 orders.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and I just saw you doing math in your head. So much of pastry is math.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh. So let's back up for a second to this dessert that you made that was, I mean, I wanted to eat it that night, but we'd been having courses from an incredible range of chefs whose food I absolutely love. Like Kwame Onwuachi made his egusi stew. He's actually talked about it on this podcast before.
Nice.
JJ talked about some of his rice on the podcast before, and I was just, Ed Mitchell was there, who's my favorite pitmaster of all time. Well, I say that, and also Rodney Scott was there, who's my other pitmaster, and it was just this like glorious array of food. And I didn't want to give short shrift to this cake because I knew it was so special. So it held up the next day and may have even been better. But can you talk about what this cake was, what the inspiration was for it, and why that particular packaging was so important?
So the dessert that we made for MoFad was a rhubarb upside down cake with sweet tea cream, not raspberry jam, sorry, because this is going back to May. I'm trying to remember.
It was strawberry.
Strawberry
I saw that
jam.
on your Instagram.
Strawberry jam, and then we did a dehydrated rhubarb chip to go with it.
That's what, okay, because I was remembering there was that extra, just like the sour, the tartness of that chip was such a beautiful thing.
So the thought behind it was the Shoebox Lunch, which came about because of segregation back before integration happened and due to civil rights and things like that. And it was interesting because when I was tasked with doing this, actually Peter Kim reached out to me he reached out to one of our managing partners who forwarded the email to me, and I was actually floored because he asked for me by name. And I looked at it and I'm just like, who am I? Like, why is he reaching out to me? But at the same time, I'm very flattered. And he actually overheard me speaking about it because he was just like, you shouldn't downplay yourself the way that you do. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I'm like, you're right. And of course, apologizing as women always do. I was like, yes, I'm sorry.
Apologizing for apologizing.
Exactly.
It's so meta. Oh my gosh. I find myself doing it and I have to break the habit of it.
It's so hard. I'm breaking myself out of a lot of habits. Mm-hmm. But to get back to the dessert, so when I was tasked to do this, I did a lot of homework and also realizing that there isn't a lot of information on the Shoebox Lunch. And essentially what it was a packaged meal that most African Americans would pack for themselves for their day, whether when they're going to school, going to work, just so they had some place to eat because there were no safe spaces for them to go to. As far as like eating in public, apparently that wasn't a cool thing to do.
And you couldn't go to restaurants necessarily and know that you were going to be welcomed and treated like human.
Exactly. So essentially what came about from that is what has been coined as a shoebox lunch, which was typically like a piece of cake, fried chicken, just essentially, or a sandwich, just essentially things that would hold through the day. And so I was trying to think of something that would be a little bit, and I hate using the word elevated, like just a little bit
chefed up.
Chefed up. But at the same time, pay homage to the history behind, what the shoebox lunch is. So we definitely decided on an upside down cake, and given that the event was in May, we figured, I honestly wanted to originally do strawberry, but quickly realized that strawberry wouldn't hold up as an upside down cake.
Right.
So we decided on rhubarb. We tested it, worked out well. Me and my sous chef kind of put our heads together for this dish. And I was really set on doing a sweet tea cream. Mainly because sweet tea is such a huge staple in the South, and I figured in cream form, like infusing the tea and like just getting like the lemon flavor in there, it would be really delicious. And when we tested it and tasted it, it was delicious, and it held up really, really well. So we're like, that's it. This is our dessert, and we went with it.
It was so beautiful, and not only did it hold up, I think I had it the next day, and I felt like the texture was richer and even more beautiful probably than when originally presented and stuff. And that's it's an awful way to have to think like that. Like, what is the food that will keep me safe and fed for pretty awful reasons? And
it's very true.
Yeah, and the fact that, it speaks to a lineage of cooking that is about trying to make the best possible thing out of like horrifying circumstances.
For sure.
So the research of that then, can you talk about how you started doing that?
Well, Google is my best friend.
Well, yeah, all of us. This is 2019.
So I definitely Googled, and I found maybe 5 articles, and that's me being very generous about and this is taking account of people giving their story as far as what they remembered when they grew up having to have a school box lunch. And MoFad also sent me some information that was super helpful. They sent me some articles and things. So between the two, I was able to piece it together and figure things out.
Yeah, it resulted in a really gorgeous, thoughtful thing that I haven't been able to stop thinking of for all this time. So let's talk about you and pastry. Did you always know that this is something that you wanted to do?
Not necessarily.
Let's talk about you. Did you grow up cooking? What was your relationship to pastry growing up, or just cooking in general? Because you do savory too, right?
I love food, period. But with that being said, I grew up in a huge family, and both my parents are from Jamaica. So I grew up with my mom always cooking. She worked a lot, but she also cooked a lot. So regardless of how much she's worked, she always made sure that she cooked. Or I also helped her with grocery shopping. So there was also that. So I was the organizer of the coupons and the circular.
Same.
And
there's such pride in it, right?
Yes.
That was always my role. I would sit there and clip out the little coupons and stuff.
Yes.
I felt
I had
so
the
proud.
I had the scissors. I had an envelope that I kept the coupons in.
Oh, with the little folder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.
Keeping everything organized. My mom always had chest freezers in the basement because we'd go shopping. We'd come back with this huge load of food. We actually shopped with 2 shopping carts. My mom would have one. I would have one. So she would have a list. I would have a list. And we would kind of meet in the middle.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island.
Oh, okay. So not very far at all.
Yes. I grew up on Long Island in Central Islip.
Okay. So you're doing this with your mom and stuff. And then is she showing you how to cook while she's doing it? Is it by default, or is it something where you very deliberately watched her?
I very deliberately watched her, and I don't think she realized how much I watched her or even observed how she cooked. Because there was this one time where we were trying to replicate her banana fritters. Actually, I shouldn't say we. It was one of my siblings was trying to replicate it, and they're like, it's not coming out like Mom's. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I went up to it, and to this day, I'm not even 100% sure what I did. I just added some flour, and I just kind of eyeballed it, like how my mom always eyeballed it. And I tasted the batter, and then I fried it, and I'm like, here, taste this. They're like, it's just like Ma's. And I was like, There you go.
Oh my gosh. And did you write it down? Did you is it like a muscle memory thing? Or?
It's totally a muscle memory thing. Like I feel like I'm very good at tasting a dish and then being able to figure out how to get it to taste like that again. But with that being said, there was certain moments where I would ask my mom to show me how to make certain things. And there was other things where I would just watch her do it and understand how she did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you said pretty big family, so you're also cooking at volume then.
Yes. The holidays is definitely all about cooking in volume.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, talk to me about holidays. So they're coming up. Are you pressed into service at holidays? Like, is it just sort of assumed because you're a chef that you will do this?
Thankfully, things have gotten to a point where I'm now asked to make salad, which I'm not sure whether to be insulted or be happy that they no longer ask me to make anything too big. But I have a niece that also likes to bake.
Okay.
So I'll help her out if she wants my help.
Okay.
She usually doesn't need it, but it's just like, I'm here. Do you like something fun for us to do together? But yeah, last year I made like a homemade vinaigrette and I got super into it, and I stopped at the farmer's market. I'm like, ooh, I got these special lettuces. And
That's so lovely. So let's say, so you're watching your mom and you're learning how to do these things. When did you realize that this is something where you were going to find your profession, your vocation, your calling?
I honestly didn't figure that out on my own. So I went to private school my whole life, and private school is a great thing, but it doesn't necessarily push you towards blue collar roles. And I remember at one point saying I want to be a lawyer. And I took a civil law class that totally changed my mind on it. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't think I want to sit at a desk. That sounds really boring. Like, this is cool information and all, but I don't think I want to do this. And so I remember discussing it with one of my siblings, with one of my sisters, and she's just like, Jessica, you're always in the kitchen. Why don't you look into culinary arts? And I'm like, what's that? She's like, it's cooking. And I'm like, oh, well, I think I'll look into that. And so I ended up going to New York Institute of Technology. I did their culinary program there, and then I completed my bachelor's degree with a degree in hospitality management.
Okay, so that is a huge backbone of this kind of thing, because we were saying, you were doing the math and stuff restaurants are so much about math. They're about math and real estate and all of these things. And if you are running a program, if you're running a pastry program or something, everything's got to be down to the penny.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So let's
constant costing, constant, yeah.
It's funny. I talk to younger people and stuff who they see all this stuff on Food Network. They see pastry competitions. They see all these things, and they think, oh, that's going to be great. I'm going to be in there, and I'm going to be doing all these things. I'm like, are you ready to sit down with a spreadsheet?
It's true. It's true, and it honestly wasn't until I worked at Nick and Tony's in the Hamptons.
Oh yes,
yes.
You had rather a time in the Hamptons.
Yes, I was out there for 5.5 years. I started as pastry sous. By the time I left there, I was executive pastry chef. And I remember the first few rounds of sitting with P&L sheets, and I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. How'd you get this number? Or and they were really good there because they would know if something was off by the penny, and we'd discuss for almost an hour, where did the penny go? Where'd the penny go? And we're just like, here's a penny. Does that make things better?
You're speaking of my personal hell. I don't have the brain that can do any of this, and I would probably just panic and cry if I had to do any of this.
Well, yeah, I remember one year we had to count. We did a yearly count of certain dishes, and I think I had to count the number one seller there is the tartufo, which was the bane of my existence. Can I say that?
Please do. Okay, walk us through why this is the case.
Because here was my issue, which has been my issue there since. You work so hard on a seasonal menu, and then there's this token dessert that everyone beloves for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Whether it be nostalgia or it's just the perfect flavor combination for that one person or whatever, and everyone's just stuck on that one dessert, and we can't get past it.
Yeah.
Can't get past it. Can't get them to try anything new. Can't get them to try anything different. It's just that one dessert, and I guess I can say this on behalf of every pastry chef, that it's very frustrating because people are more than willing to try different foods and explore. But when it comes to pastry, if they can't relate to it on a very personal level, then that's a garbage dessert. And it's like, that's not fair.
It breaks my heart. I saw a beautiful thing that you wrote about incorporating savory flavors into desserts and saying about that sort of tightrope about flavors that are too out there, because people really have this sort of canon of what they think of as dessert flavors, but pastry is so much more than that. I love a savory dessert personally.
Same. I mean, it's interesting because there's the camp of don't put fruit in my dessert, and then there's the camp of like I love caramel, or the camp of I love chocolate. So it's just you're trying to appease so many people who have very specific likes when it comes to their dessert.
Well, people are babies about it. Can we just say
they are?
Why is this? Like it makes them regress in a way that they don't necessarily with like savory dishes. Maybe because we have this memory of like growing up, like with a parent or some sort of relative who's like cooking these things. Is that what it is? Like,
I think that has a lot to do with it. To be very honest, I think. I don't know. Like people, when it comes to dessert, people like to be brought back to their childhood.
Is it? There's got to be something there because it does have that nostalgia thing built into it. Maybe it's one of the first things you make in a kitchen with. I don't know what that is, but
maybe I don't know. Because for me, like growing up, eating for the most part Jamaican food, like with a little bit of American food sprinkled in. It wasn't until I went to culinary school and even like just living my adult life that I started trying different foods. Like I didn't have, let's say for example, like peanut butter and banana until like age 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I tried it and I was just like, oh my God.
Where's this been?
Like seriously, like why have people been hiding this from me? Or like even trying Nutella. And this was really funny because everyone at my culinary school could not believe I had never tried Nutella before. They were just like, well, what kind of bubble have you been living in? And I'm like, I don't.
A good one?
I guess.
But I mean, this actually speaks to a problem in culinary and culinary schools in particular to me, because there is a particular point of view, which like basically like a sort of white point of view that is seen as the default set of experiences, which that is not good, fair, useful, any of this kind of stuff. And it's just, there seems to be this particular canon, especially in a lot of pastry, that tends toward this like almost like either French or like kind of Midwestern white kind of thing. It doesn't leave a lot of room. And
no, that's very true. That's definitely very true. And I don't necessarily think it's always black and white, because even within like the Black community, I remember like in my private school, the few Black people that I was surrounded with. Yeah. I remember talking about like foods that I ate growing up, or for example, I said, telling a friend how I ate callaloo like the day before. And she started laughing hysterically. And she's like, what's callaloo? And I'm like, all right, well, this conversation's over because you just laughed at like what I grew up eating my whole life.
Don't laugh at people's foods. Oh my God. Don't yuck somebody else's yum. Don't like laugh at their experience. It makes me just bananas when people either, like, for some reason it's a big social media thing, but I think it's a thing in life when people say, oh, you don't know this particular thing. How did you grow up? I'm like, I didn't grow up that way. Like, share with me instead of ridiculing me.
It's the truth, because I also have been made fun of for not knowing what chitlins were. Yeah. When I was in high school, and I was just like, I grew up in a Jamaican household. We don't eat chitlins. Yeah. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
It's a funny thing. Like, I was actually just in Oxford, Mississippi, Southern Foodways Alliance Symposium weekend before last, and Eduardo Jordan made like the fanciest ass chitlins I've ever had in my life. But it was a really interesting thing to see who at the table was like diving into the chitlins versus sort of who was going to try it, and then the people who just said, oh no, absolutely not. I'm like, one of the most decorated chefs in the U.S. has just made you something. Like, try the damn thing.
It's true. And the worst thing that can happen is you don't like it, and then just don't eat anymore.
The polite bite. It's like, really. So you're in like culinary school, and so you have grown up with a canon of desserts. Talk to me, what are the desserts and were you in there specifically for pastry in culinary?
So culinary school, I did everything. Okay. I only had 2 baking classes. So like my pastry background as far as school is concerned is super basic. It probably on my 3rd job at being in the working world, I finally like was focused on pastry. Yeah. And my first sous chef role in pastry was in the Hamptons at Nick and Tony's. So that was my first like I'm moving out of my mom's house. I'm stepping up as a sous chef, just all the things.
Everything's coming up, Jessica.
And I packed up my car and I drove to the Hamptons.
Oh my God. Okay, full disclosure, I've never been to the Hamptons. So I have this version of the Hamptons that lives in my head, and it's a very Real Housewives-y kind of thing. I don't know exactly, but it's something that it's like, it almost is, maybe this is horrible of me, but it feels like a very different kind of person than I am who would be out in the Hamptons and maybe have that reflect in the clientele. Just remember reading all these like Lizzie Grubman stories.
Fair enough. That's very fair.
But I'm sure that's not the totality of it.
The Hamptons is definitely its own thing. Separate from the rest of Long Island. Now I understand why people say the Hamptons, because it's literally its own thing. It's very different. On one hand, it's an imaginary world because even working out there, you're offered a lot of money to work out there because of the seasonality of it, and it's so hard to get help out there. So like the paying wage out there is definitely way higher than it would be elsewhere. So there's that. But I met a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds that I never thought I would have met out there. To be very honest, I thought it was going to be all white, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Like I just sort of assume in my head that that's what it is. But then you have like Diddy and his white party or whatever it was. Well,
you also have to think about who is being the help.
Right.
The help needs to live out there.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah. No, so how is the help treated out there?
I mean, working for Nick and Tony's, they were absolutely lovely.
I mean, like the clientele.
Well, the clientele wasn't always very nice.
It's again, like you said, it's an imaginary world. So I'm just trying to sort of reconcile this thing. Like, I don't know if I will ever actually go there because then it'll destroy this. Gossip Girl. Actually, that's the Hamptons. That is in my head. Is the Gossip Girl version.
Oh,
of it.
And that's so sad. Like at this point, I love going out there to visit. It's very lovely.
It seems beautiful.
Montauk, I love more so than the rest, even though Montauk has slowly gotten ruined by the rest. But because it was always the anti-Hampton, and it was like that extra leg that everyone wasn't willing to travel because it's just like it's Long Island's long and it takes forever to get out there. It takes like 3 hours?
Especially during the summer.
Yeah, I don't bother in the summer. It's really not worth it unless you're driving out there on like a Monday.
Right.
And then when no one else wants to be out there, which is perfect for a chef because then I could bug my friends out there and be like, hey, I want to come out for a Monday, Tuesday. And they're happy to host me because then on the flip side, when they want to come out here in the fall, winter, when I'm busy, then it's just like, oh, come through.
That's really nice. That's a really lovely.
It's a nice trade-off.
Oh, and now I see Blade has helicopters out there. Super fancy version of it. But that's your first job out of culinary school, is it, or do you?
No. Oh, so my first job out of culinary school. I interned for a Marriott on Long Island, and that was very interesting because there was a woman who worked there who was from Barbados, and because of her accent and speaking in patois, the staff definitely didn't understand what she was saying a lot of the time because she was definitely cursing them out.
Did they deserve it?
I think for the most part they had an idea, but they just kind of let her be.
Right.
And she totally, like, in a very motherly way, took me under her wing. And I mean, this is my first job, so I'm not moving as fast. I'm, trying to take things in.
How old are you at this point?
At this point, I'm probably like 18.
Okay, little baby.
Yeah, like baby Jessica, like very innocent, very naive, has no idea about anything, trying to be a chef, the best way she can. And I remember cutting fruit and being put on omelet station because no one else wanted to do omelet station. And minutes before my first omelet station service, she's showing me how to flip an egg in a pan.
So you didn't know? Wow.
I had no idea how to do it. Like I saw on TV chefs saute. I didn't know how to do that. Like, how do you do that? It's now I know it's an arm motion. At the time, I'm just like, okay. She's like, crack an egg. She's like, let it cook. She's like, we're gonna cook it, and you're gonna flip. And she's like, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna flip until you feel comfortable. And I did that for a solid maybe 5 minutes. And she's like, all right, go outside, go do the omelets. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God, but really good that she saw this and put herself there to, she didn't just let you crash.
Totally, because she also pulled me to the side and she had a very specific conversation with me where she was just like, listen, she's like, you're moving too slow. And I looked at her and I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the second thing that she said to me, she was like, take a look around. There aren't a lot of us in here, meaning that we're both African American.
Yeah.
And she was just like, we have to be better. We have to be faster. We have to do she really like took me under her wing, coached me, and I was just like, okay. I was like a sponge absorbing everything that she taught me. And that was my first job in the industry.
Oh my, do you know where she is? Is she still there?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's interesting. I'm so fascinated by hotel restaurants and the volume that happens there. I mean, if you're going to start off as a first job, like that seems like trial by fire. Mm-hmm. So how many omelets do you think you made that first day?
Oh God, who knows? Like, it's really funny. After interning there, I didn't eat eggs for a few years.
That doesn't surprise me. Oh my gosh. Having to make something over and over and over so many times. Like, I feel like there's so many chefs who like won't touch an egg now.
But I'm sure like I made hundreds, and then having to learn what a Spanish omelet was versus like, I don't even know anymore. It's been so long. Like it's just, and people expecting for you to know it. Cause I remember the first time someone asked me and I ran in the back, I'm like, what's a Spanish omelet?
Do you feel like culinary school properly prepared you for working in restaurants?
No.
That's
to like very short answer, no.
Yeah.
To be honest, like it definitely gives a foundation of knowledge for sure. But I think internships are important. I think being in the field is important because a lot of people approach it thinking that it's going to be Food Network, glitz and glam, when in reality the day-to-day is not that at all. Oh my, yeah, let's talk about that because it's brutal hours. It is low pay. It is getting yelled at. It's a lot. You have to really want to do it if you're going to do it. For sure. There definitely has to be a passion there. With that being said, I feel like it's getting better.
I hope.
Clearly far from perfect. But it's tough. It's tough. And the amount of money that you're expected to pay on culinary school versus what you're going to make coming out of it. It's a huge discrepancy.
Like you see, the CIA, I mean, is that several $100,000, I think, if you're going to.
I'm not even sure anymore. I had a cook that told me, and this is years back, how much he spent on school. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And it's not an accredited program as far as like having a degree. Like you get a certificate that you're knowledgeable in this area, but all things considered, that's a lot of money to drop.
So much money, and it's not like you're spending all this money on like medical school or law school or something like that where it comes in. So there has to be something else that feeds you.
Well, that's the whole thing. And a lot of I want to say kids, but they're not always kids. Like sometimes it's like a second like career kind of thing. And, they get into it and just to realize that's not for them. Yeah. I mean, when I was I think I was in the midst of school still when I met someone who was doing the program that I was doing, but at a different campus. And she was just like, after this internship, she's like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's crazy because you just spent a lot of money just to realize you don't want to do this anymore, which I'm sure that it can happen in any career. Clearly it can happen in any career, but it's just very wild to me. Yeah, I have a different career than I started out in, but I don't regret it because I learned a lot of things. Yeah. There's actually a really great program that just started up in New Orleans, NOCHI, New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute, or I think I got that right. It's amazing because it costs much less than, they worked with the CIA on this, and they boiled down everything from that long degree into something like 5 months. Cool. The price point is way lower, and it is a lot of like second career kind of people, like other people just starting out or second career people. There, it's like a cohort of maybe like 24 people, something. It's like very small classes. Very nice. I'm glad that people are refiguring this because it's I mean, it's a great career. It's amazing if you can go to school because I don't regret going to school. Like I don't want it to come off that way. Like I totally was all about it. I was a sponge, reading all the books, doing all the assignments, pissing off my classmates because I did all the things. I was that student. But look where it got you. Well, exactly. But the cost it's a lot.
So you're learning as you're doing. You went to school. You're learning as you're doing. Are cookbooks figuring into this anywhere? Where are you getting your inspiration from? Like in addition to work, because you always got to feed that other part of you.
So when I was in school, to be very honest, I was pretty much reading our On Cooking book as far as like learning about history of food.
Yeah.
Becoming a Chef was one of our readings that we had to do, but to be honest, it wasn't until I was really in the industry before I think my favorite cookbook that I picked up was Dory Greenspan's.
Oh God, she's so
baking
good.
book.
Oh, she's so
I took so many scone recipes from that book, muffin recipes. Like her stuff was just so good.
Her
and
cookies.
Also
oh my God,
listening to her like podcasts and stuff like that and learning that she wasn't necessarily the best restaurant chef. And that's okay, because now she's made a lovely career writing books and things. And I mean, her recipes are amazing. They really are.
Oh, they're so wonderful. I feel like there is going to be this... There was a wave of pastry chefs that happened, I feel like in the 90s and the 2000s, who maybe got a little lost in the shuffle, and they're reissuing some of their things. Like Claudia Fleming's book is being reissued.
I'm very excited about it.
Oh my God. And she's on Long Island now, isn't she? Okay.
She's on the North Fork. I've been to North Fork Table. And the funny part about that experience was I ate my meal. I did like a staycation on the North Fork, and I sat at the bar, and I didn't finish my meal. However, I still ordered dessert.
Yeah.
And so the person that was there, and I'm not sure if he was like a somm or it was like a slow night, so it was in the off season. And he saw that I ate all my dessert, but I didn't finish my entree. And then he had to know about
hospitality.
Then he had to know about me. He's like, "Who are you?" Basically, like, how, what's going on?
Like, yeah, like he sees your sensibility, and that's good hospitality too, to see like people's like what they're focusing on.
For sure. And I explained that I worked at Nick and Tony's. I was just like hanging out, on the North Fork, because I never really spent time up there. And he brought me out another dessert. Which I finished, and I'm like, all right, now you have to stop, because clearly I have a second stomach.
A dessert stomach.
Dessert. Because he's like, I don't understand. He's like, how does this work? And I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know where it goes.
My niece has a thing she calls dessert pants.
Nice.
Which I like. Like you go over to her house for a cozy evening.
I like
she issues you dessert pants, and I love that.
I love it.
So he sees this is happening, and
he sends a second dessert. I finish that, and then he finally sends out like maybe like 2 cider donuts, and I'm giving
just
him
for later, like
pretty much, and I'm sitting there giving him the evil eye as I'm eating these cider
Damn
donuts.
you, and I can't not eat this.
And I'm signing for the check, and I'm like, no more. That's it, no more. And even before that, my first summer at Nick and Tony's, I think it was the 25th anniversary, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's this charity event that they have out there every year called the Great Chef's Dinner, and they were hosting it at Nick and Tony's in the parking lot. There was like a tent and like a whole setup.
Cool.
And so there were all these celebrity chefs, like Tom Colicchio came through. I remember Gwyneth Paltrow was there. Steven Spielberg was eating dinner inside. Eric Ripert was there. Because I, like being, from, well, clearly I was still on Long Island, but being from Long Island and being a small town girl, like I didn't know who a lot of these people were at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember walking through the kitchen. Eric Ripert was like going over a dish, and I needed to walk through with something. And I wasn't mean or anything. I asked him, if he could get out of my way. He was like, oh yeah, sure. And the whole kitchen was quiet. Like you could hear a pin drop. And then later on, my pastry chef points to him and was like, that's Eric Ripert. And I was like, oh man, I asked him to get out of my way.
Well, he was in your way. He should know better, honestly. Like, Eric, come on, man.
But Claudia Fleming did her famous, coconut tapioca pudding.
Oh my God.
With passion fruit sorbet, and I had the honor of spinning her sorbet. She sent the base to us and to spin for her, and so that was my first interaction with her. But I've had very small interactions with her. I'm sure she has no idea who I am, but it's fine.
Again, you're underselling yourself here. Like, this is also an intervention and therapy session here for you to
Thank you, I appreciate
sing your own praises, because you make stuff that is thoughtful and worthy. But I think I'm so excited. Her book is being reissued. I want people to know about like Meredith Kurtzman. I want
It's true.
or the late great Gina De Palma. Like,
Oh yes,
yeah, who made a lot of desserts that people just think of as default now, and she came up with these things. And
No, it's true. Like even who is it? Karen Damasco. Like,
oh God, yes.
I got to stage with her at La Conda before I was actually an employee at La Conda, which is really funny.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
They hadn't been open very long, and my chef suggested that I went there to stage, and I'm like, all right, I don't know what this La Conda Verde is, but you can send me there. And and I go, and like Karen was lovely.
Yeah.
She fed me every single day. She was like, the pastries would come down from the cafe. She was like, Jessica, did you eat? And it's just like, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, go on.
This is what women do.
Get some pastries. And I think they were preparing for Off the Menu, that book. It was like the book with all the family meals.
Yeah.
And she encouraged me to go for the photo shoot. I was like, no, I'm not an employee here. I'll just, eat my family meal down here. She was like, you will take a plate. You will go upstairs. I'm like, all right, yes, ma'am. And so I took my plate. I went upstairs, and then my picture was in the book, even though I wasn't like an official employee. So I feel like it was kind of
But your hands went into it.
foreshadowing when I was finally going to be hired by them.
Oh my gosh, I believe in like they say dress for the job you want. I'm like, be in the group pictures for the job you want to have or something. But so you're talking about these people who saw you and were like, hey, here are the ways to either be seen, be part of things, but telling you that you have a place at the table and that you belong. So let's talk about that and how now you do that. And because it is a thing where in pastry, it's an interesting sort of gendered thing in a lot of ways, and also, frankly, there aren't as many Black chefs out there as well, especially not in pastry.
Yeah,
I think, and so it was very important to have mentorships and just people you can look up to. Who was there for you, and how do you share that lesson now with young people coming up?
I honestly think my first...
You are a young person, too. I will say that.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to... Yeah.
I think my first true mentor was probably my first pastry chef in the Hamptons. Her name is Molly Harding. She probably blushes every time I say her name. But she sincerely was, because she taught me seasonality, which is something I didn't know or understand until working out there. She also taught me to pay attention to current events, because around the time that I got hired was when the election for Obama was happening. So she would listen to NPR all the time, and I'm like, oh, this is so boring. But at the end of the day, it was very informative.
Right.
And so
it just seeps in there.
Exactly.
Right?
And younger me was just like, oh, why she always has a station on? This is ridiculous. But in the end, I was paying attention a lot more than I realized I was paying attention.
Right.
So it wasn't just like her teaching me about pastry. It was also like an encompassing learning experience. And then fast forward to closer to now, I would say Karen Baldwin, who I worked with at La Conda Verde, for sure. I feel like our styles are very similar in like rustic Italian or just rustic in general. And she just taught me a lot about flavor combinations and just realizing that I have a love for making jams. I think that was I did before that, but it was especially working there when she like taught me how to make an apple jelly, and it's just like, oh, we need jams for brunch. You could do whatever you want, and it's just like, oh, this is great, and just learning like a very simple formula to making a jam, and which I use to this day every single time. Like just the weight of your fruit plus, sugar plus acid, and then that's it. Like it's so simple, but it yields such a beautiful product.
Oh God, a good jam could just make your day. It can make your week.
It really can.
It's
paired with cheese, paired with toast, paired with like almost anything.
paired with my face. It's like just want to put jam in. Like it's just such a beautiful thing, and it is one of those. I didn't have great jam as a child. I don't have, but you don't know that as a kid. You think like, this thing this very commercial thing I'm eating out of the jar is the best thing I've ever had in my whole life.
It's true. I was a Goober girl. I loved Goober.
Oh my God. With the stripy one?
Yes. It's
It's
basically candy in a jar, but that was my favorite.
We were only ever once in a while allowed to get that, and it was the best day. And because it was my sister and me, and we would sort of divvy, like, you really have to have like a detente in your house for that to work, or else somebody is just going to scoop it the wrong way.
It's true.
And
if someone scoops it the wrong way, then you're just, you don't know how to eat this.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. It's like everybody should be forced to like share a jar. And I just want to make sure you're specifically talking about that stripy one.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, 100%.
Do they still make that?
Yes, they do.
Oh my God! And what particular peanut butter is the one that you like that you grew up with? Was it the Goober grape in particular that you liked?
It was the Goober grape.
Oh my God! There's nothing like that, like peanut butter and grape jelly. Like
it's true. It's true. It's something about that combination. It's just good.
It just really, really is. So at what point did you realize that you could have your own particular voice in the things that you were making? That there is this canon of recipes, sure, that comes down, like you have a cannelé, you have a Napoleon, like these particular formats, and and there can be the recipe version of that. When did you start making these things yours?
I would definitely say that probably started once I became executive pastry chef at Nick and Tony's. Like I probably the first year wasn't 100% me, and it was definitely like inspiration from like past chefs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then as I progressed, I mean, let's be honest, we all have to start somewhere, and usually, I mean, there's nothing original. So you usually have to start.
And it's really important. Like I went to art school, and I used to say like, you have to be able to paint the damn apple before you can start doing abstract work, or else it's not going to hang together. And like pastry is so much math and science.
No, it's true. And it's definitely a lot of mistakes made or just like being sent back to the drawing board, like presenting certain dishes to like my chef, and that also helps too, because I usually have as many people taste something as possible.
That's great. Yeah.
Just to get the different perceptions, because I might think something is delicious and you might think it's gross, or just not as delicious or whatever. So I would definitely do that a lot, and I think closer to now, especially once I started at L'Artusi, I was very comfortable and confident in the repertoire of recipes that I have, as well as our menu at L'Artusi is also very collaborative. So like my sous chef chimes in, I even let the cooks chime in. It's just like, you have a great idea, let's work together. Let's put our heads together and like figure it out. Like I don't necessarily want it to be a dictatorship, because then otherwise, like, you get bored. Like I remember when I was a cook, or I was a sous chef or whatever, and in a lot of ways I try to be the chef that I wanted or felt like I needed.
Yes.
Or that some of my chefs were.
Yeah.
So I try to emulate that and try my best to, I guess, be the best positive role model that I can be.
So let's talk through what that looks like, because there is cooking, but there's also being a person. There's being a human, and I think that so often when people are in a kitchen, I think this is changing, but the culture had been, up to relatively recently, you are not a person in the kitchen.
It's very true.
You're just making.
It's very true. And there's, unfortunately, a lot of kitchens that are still like that. Mm-hmm. The number one thing that I will say to my cooks and to my staff is that we're still human. Mistakes will get made. Mm-hmm. You clearly have a life outside of here that things are happening. I have a life outside of here where things are happening. Like yes, what's happening here is important, but take care of yourself first. That's number one. I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned, especially being in a pastry like executive role, and handling, a staff and things like that. I think self-care is super important, and it's something that I have definitely realized that I wasn't good about because I was never taught to be good
Yes.
about it. It's like life. What life? This is your life. No, that's not how it should be.
It's so hard, like when you have not been brought up with any notion of self-care. There's
Yes.
maybe some self-preservation,
Yeah.
or there's like you just have to work.
Yeah.
It feels indulgent. It feels selfish. It takes whatever,
does.
and it's such a hard. And I'm only recently starting to try to learn how to maybe
Same.
do
Same.
this. So what are the things that you are finding? How it's a really hard thing to do. So how did you give yourself permission to take care of yourself, and what are some of the things that you do?
I think the biggest thing that I did for myself is starting to go to therapy.
Yay, therapy! Oh my God, yay, therapy.
It was very extreme circumstances that pushed me in that direction, but
Yeah.
and on one hand, it was good that these things happened
Yeah.
to kind of push me to find help.
I'm sorry that you'd be put in that situation to begin with, whatever it was. Yeah.
It is unfortunate, but at the same time, I'm kind of happy. Like I'm
Yeah.
always looking for the silver lining,
Right.
and I'm also
Right.
happy that happened, because otherwise I would still like be suffering in my own head.
It can be a really dark and difficult place, and especially if you work in a kitchen where you're not encouraged to, talk about this kind of stuff. I really appreciated that on your Instagram you posted a really great mental health note on there.
Oh well, yes, that was super important to me, especially given everything that happened with Anthony Bourdain, and
yeah.
this is clearly an issue for people on every level and every industry. It clearly doesn't end with the restaurant industry, but it's important to give people space to not be okay.
I agree with you 1,000,000,000%.
And I feel like, especially in a lot of restaurant kitchens I've worked in, like it's not always accepted. I've definitely seen people go through very serious issues, whether it be like a family member, a friend, or whoever pass away, or like, I don't know, dealing with their own bodies. Like maybe there's something wrong, or like being diagnosed with something. Like it could be literally anything, and just being told like, and
They skip the funeral. They
Yeah.
don't go to the holiday thing.
yes,
And they become more and more detached.
exactly.
I'm glad that.
You shouldn't be existing. You should be living.
Thank you. Okay, the T-shirt. Have you copyrighted that? Should there be a T-shirt somewhere? Because it's so important. And the way my therapist, my former therapist, would say, and I loved him for this. You're a human being, not a human doing. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like who am I if I'm not just busting my ass
Exactly.
24/7?
Exactly.
So you started seeing a therapist. Then are there other concrete measures, like more sleep boundary? Like how do you?
My sleep has gotten better. It's not perfect, but
That's a rough one.
it is. It's hard because I've come to realize that I am a typically anxious person, as I'm sure.
Wrote a whole book about it. So yeah.
So sleeping doesn't always come easy, but I've been trying to give myself more space to sleep. I treat myself to massages, pedicure. Like I treat myself, and I treat myself well.
Well, it's such a physical profession.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's not even treating yourself. That's just like maintenance.
Yeah, it actually is. And I just recently started doing dance cardio. So like dancing was something that I've always loved to do, not necessarily professionally. Like a girlfriend of mine and I used to go every Friday night, and that was like a huge outlet for me. More so, I didn't realize until like I didn't have it, and then I started like going out with other people to go out dancing, and then they've just kind of trailed off to this point where I didn't have that anymore,
Yeah.
and I'm just like kind of existing, and I'm just like I personally love dancing because it's a form of expression without talking.
Yeah. Yes. Your body's telling you what to do.
Exactly. So that's something I've been doing for the past few months, actually. Dance cardio. So it's like, yes, I got to work out in, but at the same time, I can like dance it out a little bit.
It's so. I'm picturing like kitchen dance party.
We do all the time.
You do?
Yes, we do.
Oh my God! Talk to me about your kitchen culture, because I love this so much. I recently did. Was talking to Cassidy Dabney from Blackberry Farm, and I was talking about the power of screaming, because like I think if you're in a place where it's safe to just like yell from the bottom of your stomach, it's really healing. And she's like, oh, my team and I do that every day in the dining room at Blackberry Farm.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it's such a great thing. So we were doing this talk, and we actually got people together and screamed, and it's so powerful. You have to do it from your stomach, so you don't hurt your throat.
Okay,
but if you like yell while you're dancing, is actually kind of a great thing. Wait, I want video of like your dance parties in the kitchen. Is there particular music? Is there?
It's actually kind of funny because sometimes on the prep list, my Sue will write Beyonce Day on the top, and then my cook will come in and just only play Beyonce. You know?
Oh my god, I mean, that's gotta be such a great like positive tone for a kitchen to have. Unless it like I'm thinking, is there a particular song of Beyonce's that's just like the thing?
Oh my god, Beyonce has so many.
And has she been in the restaurant?
I don't think. Now I have to ask my GM. I don't think she has though.
Because she's a good diner.
She I got to bask in her wonderfulness a little bit at La Conda Verde.
Okay.
When I stashed there, she was there with Jay-Z. Actually, she was actually there with Gwyneth first.
Oh, yeah.
And this is how I got to know that the two of them were even friends before any article was put out about the two of them being friends.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
It is a thing.
Do they just glow?
They kind of did a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. She looks exactly the same in person as she does in any photo.
Oh my
and the two of them were sitting across from each other. She had security sitting at a separate table. Mm-hmm. But there were two security people there, and that made sense because now Jay-Z walks in and sits with them for a brief moment. And then, who was it? Russell Simmons was having a party in the back. So it's like, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things happening. There's so many people. This is so cool. I'm like, oh, this is wild.
I just love that. Like, what a fun atmosphere to be in.
No, it was super cool. And then like fast forward a few years now when I'm actually working at La Conda Verde, now they're like renting out like the penthouse for like a night because they wanted a date night or whatever it is that they do when you're fancy.
to be Beyonce fancy. Like, oh my God. But I love this. It's like, I think that's so wonderful, like taking care of yourself and listening to yourself and most importantly, modeling that behavior for people around you.
For sure.
You have,
because I feel like I'm pretty good at judging when the cooks are off, and I personally don't like to see that because I know what it's like to be in that place. So I'll try to pull them to the side and try to, not that they need to talk to me, like they clearly don't have to, but like try to get to the root of what's going on. Like, is there anything I can do to help make it better?
Yeah.
You know, just because, like I said, at the end of the day, we're human. And I think it's very important, especially if you expect for people to continuously put out a product and put it out well. Like, you don't want miserable people cooking your food. It helps if people are actually happy and putting a little bit of love into what they're making for you.
This is so beautiful and so antithetical to like that previous like abusive brigade system like that happened before, where like there's just a notion of how did people ever think that like yelling at people and being physically terrible to them was the best way to get good work out of people in a kitchen.
To be honest, like even thinking back on my career, the few times I've been yelled at, you're not getting the best out of me.
No.
like you're trying to instill a certain level of fear. With all due respect, my mother will always be scarier than any human ever. So if you're trying to instill fear in me, that's not the way to go about it. That is not the way to go about it. So if anything, it would make me angry.
Yeah.
And then just be like, all right, well, we've got to figure out how to make you stop doing this because like this isn't going to play out well if you keep yelling at me.
It's not going to go well.
Yeah.
So you had hired a Sue.
Yes.
So what are the lessons that you want your Sue? What is their name?
Janae.
Janae.
Yes.
What do you want Janae? What is the future in pastry that you want for her?
God, I want for her to have it all. Like she's super talented. She really is. When she came, and it's funny because she and I have discussed this, and when she came to interview, I knew as soon as I met her that she was probably going to be it. But, of course, I had to be fair and
right.
things. And then her dessert was amazing.
What was it?
It was a lemon meringue tart, and she did a ginger snap crust. I think she put pomegranate with it. And I'm pretty sure she did a gelato, and of course I can't remember what it was. But that, to be honest, because I still talk about it, that ginger snap crust was just everything. And she made a similar dessert to another person, and the chef and I had her dessert, and we both looked at each other, and we just like kind of nodded, like, yeah, this is it.
Oh my gosh! Like your tongue can tell you, like, and it was just like her as a person and her on a plate.
Yes,
Oh my-
yes, both things. It just totally added up, and to be honest, I feel like we mesh very well. Yeah.
That's really, really nice. If you were to sort of put you on a plate as a dessert, what would that dessert be?
Oh wow, me as a dessert on a plate.
That you didn't have to worry about, is this going to sell well? Is this going to freak out the customers who want their tartuffe?
Right. I personally love bananas very, very, very much.
Yes.
And there's actually a banana fritter that I have done in the past that is my favorite, and that's definitely me on a plate because it's an homage to my heritage and you know, my mom and the food I grew up on, but at the same time I took it and I totally tweaked it. Yeah, that's it.
And then what is the holiday dessert that is like the thing?
Oh my God. Like that I normally have with my family, or just in general, like a...
Yeah, what is the family dessert thing that you're like, oh, it's not the holidays without this particular?
See, now I can't... To me, this is dessert, but at the same time, it's not.
It's all right.
So there's this traditional beverage, Jamaican beverage, carrot juice, that sounds a lot healthier than what it is. So it is actual carrot juice, and you mix it with condensed milk, and you add nutmeg and ginger. Like some people do ginger, some people don't. So it's like spices, condensed milk, carrot juice, and it's my favorite. And when the holidays come around, I look to my mom, I'm like, you make carrot juice? And she makes it because she knows I like it. And I'm not the only one who likes it. I have other siblings who like it too, but I try to hoard it for myself.
That is such a lovely, lovely thing. So we're coming up on the holidays. This must be like Super Bowl time, for like the most intense time of the year.
It is.
How do you get ready for that, like physically, emotionally, all the things? Get ready because are there takeout orders too, or are there people ordering? Can you order desserts like separately?
Well, we have cakes that we'll do for pickup. I'm trying to think of what else. Then we also have like the catering parties, and then just the restaurant being busy in general. So as far as preparation, staff up.
Staff up, extra Beyonce that day.
Staff up. Yeah, just make sure that your orders are up to par, like you have everything in house that you need, and try to get as much rest as you can, and you show up each day and just work your magic. And it's interesting because during the off season we don't get that many cake orders, so when it's like we're in it and I have all these sheets and I'm like trying to line them up, and I'm just like, okay, all right, we need olive oil cake and then a yellow cake and then a chocolate. Okay, and what kind of frosting do they want? And I'm like trying to line up all the things.
It's so much. What is the number one dessert that gets sold like on a regular basis and then at the holidays?
Olive oil cake all year round. Doesn't matter.
What is
not
that
matter.
about it? Why I mean, I love olive oil cake.
Olive oil cake too, and our recipe is probably more simple than everyone realizes how it is. It's a very simple recipe, and we just sell it by the piece, and we serve it with raisin marmalade and whipped creme fraiche, and it's very simple. Oh, and sea salt on top of the creme fraiche, so you get the sweet and the salty. And the cake is super moist, and I think that's just why people gravitate towards it, because it's very simple and the flavors like really complement each other.
You're making me so hungry with this. I want that so badly right now. And then, is there any time during the holiday that you just get to relax and be?
Christmas.
Okay.
Because our restaurant's closed Thanksgiving Day, and then we're closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, which is like pretty much unheard of, and so that's perfect. Like I get to have Christmas Eve to myself for the most part, and then Christmas Day is like all with my family. So
that's so lovely.
Yeah.
And some carrot juice and some,
yes.
Oh, that's so lovely. So I have a few questions that I ask everybody who comes on here. So we're putting this out into the universe. It's like the secret to the Oprah moment, because I really believe in we were saying about, like, you show up in the picture, you get the job later.
Yes.
What is the thing that you can say out into the universe that people can help you get to? Now, what is the dream, the thing you want for yourself?
I I think my dream right now is to be able to travel, cook, eat.
Yeah.
Sounds so simple, but like if I could have a job where I could do those three things.
Yeah. I was saying before this, I had stalked your Instagram trip to Italy, and
Yes.
it looked amazing. So what would be on the travel itinerary?
Definitely like the Philippines or Japan. Like I've never really been to Asia before, so
Yeah.
like pretty much any of like the main staples there. I would love to go back to Australia. I would love to go to New Zealand.
Yes.
Italy, but a region where I haven't been. So maybe like Sicily or I don't know. But yeah, those would be like the top places I would want to go.
So we're gonna get you a travel show.
Yes,
Where
yes,
let's
yes.
like, can we put this into the universe
For sure.
too? Because like you would so kick ass at this. So put it into the universe. Whoever is listening to or watching this, like, get Jessica a show or something like that where she gets to like go around and do all these things, because the world would be so much
absolutely.
better.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and I'll jokingly say this, but if I can have like a show where I can travel and just learn how people who are making amazing food do their food, like I'd throw on an apron, I'd go in the kitchen and learn how to like cook anything, and it doesn't have to be pastry. Like I love food in general, so it doesn't matter.
I think you're Anthony Bourdain now. Like you could, like, I think, I mean, honestly, like I think a show like that would be such a beautiful thing.
It would be amazing.
I would love to be in a world where people learned all these things from you. I think that would be a great thing.
Yes, I would feel very special if that happened.
Yay. Okay, so we're putting this out to the universe. Actually, can we pinky swear on this?
That's right.
Yay. Yay. Universe, hear this. Have you ever cried in the walk-in?
No.
Okay. Have you had any emotion in the walk-in?
Not in the walk-in. In the office, yes.
Okay.
In the office, yes. And it's funny because I actually heard this question that you have asked other guests. I sincerely thought about it because I'm like, I don't think I have cried in the walk-in. I have in the office, and usually about things not having to do with work.
Yeah.
And then I thought about something where I did cry about something at work. So I'm like, all right, so I did cry about something.
It
at work.
is a powerful space, the walk-in and the office. But also you have office access. So.
Well, our restaurant is super tiny.
Yeah.
And also our walk-in doesn't have like that window where you can see who's coming.
Right.
So that's not a safe
Right.
space at our restaurant to like shed a tear, because then someone's going to walk in and there's not that much space, and it's like an awkward trying to get out the walk-in so that you can
like, just gonna walk around. It's
Exactly.
fine. There's the flower. That's like, oh my gosh. So what is your comfort food?
Oh God. My comfort food is almost any Jamaican food, to be honest, like ackee and saltfish and dumplings and kalaloo and
Again,
curried goat, curried chicken, and stewed chicken.
making me hungry again. Is there a particular place, because not everybody can go to your house, is there a place that you like to go and get it?
I usually go home for it, to be very honest.
No, I
I
figured.
usually do. As far as somewhere, because I feel like someone usually gets it for me. I used to like Miss Lily's when they had their to-go spot on the side, which unfortunately closed, because they used to make like these handmade patties that had like ackee and saltfish inside and things like that, and their rotis actually was really good. I mean, they still have the restaurant there, they just don't have like the to-go spot that was on the side. When I saw that it closed, I was very sad.
Oh, sorry. No, again, making me hungry with all of this. What is the last meal that you had that made you emotional?
Ooh. Probably a meal. I want to say it was this past January, but maybe it wasn't. But it was a meal that I had out in Long Island at a restaurant called, I think it's called Tula's. Yes, Tula's. And it was mainly emotional because my brother had just passed away, and we decided to have dinner there. So that was the huge reason why it was emotional.
Yeah.
They have amazing food.
Yeah.
The occasion wasn't that great, but they have amazing food and just the whole experience.
I mean, food can be so powerful in those moments where you're trying to reckon with
For sure.
difficulty.
Like
and
we picked his favorite foods and all that. Yeah.
that's a really important thing. I think that's a great way to honor people. I've definitely done that. Like, go to somebody's favorite restaurant, get the thing they would have gotten, and and you're also making me think a lot about Long Island and how I should really like go out there and get some food.
There's some good food out there.
Yeah, it sounds that way. I mean, I still have to. Don't know if I'll ever get to the Hamptons, but you've convinced me. I'm like,
that's very fair. Baby steps. Just
it's
baby steps.
It's a little just drive a little bit further every time. What is the last time that somebody cooked for you in their home?
Outside of my mom.
Sounds like your mom is a really good cook.
She really is. Who has cooked for me recently? Probably the guy I've been dating.
Oh, okay. What did he cook?
What did he make? He made, I think it was like a traditional Trinidad meal. Like he heated it up for me. There was like roti sleeves, and there was like curried chicken or curried goat or something like that.
Was he intimidated because you're a chef?
I'd like to say I don't intimidate him, but I may. I don't know.
Good, he should be. Was it good?
It was delicious. It was so good.
See, sir, please cook for her more often. Put the smile on her face.
Well, he's also in the industry, so I honestly don't force him. Like, we're usually getting takeout or sitting at a table. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like chefs don't cook at home. They're
no.
Go out. And
like he does cook at home a lot, but I'm usually not the reason why.
Right.
I'm usually like, relax. You don't have to cook for me. It's fine. I understand.
That's really nice. But still, I want people to cook for you. People don't cook for chefs, and they should. What living musician would you want to cook for, and what would you cook for them? I'm trying to think of who I like a lot. Yeah. And you get to sit down and eat it with them, by the way.
How about Lizzo?
Hello, Lizzo. What would you cook for Lizzo?
What would I cook for Lizzo? I don't know what she likes. I would want to find out what she likes, so I make what she likes.
Right.
Like a full meal or just dessert?
Anything you want. It's Lizzo.
I'd probably keep it to my roots and cook like a Jamaican style meal, to be honest. And I would probably do like rice and peas and like, I don't know, maybe like a curried goat, curried chicken, or even something jerked, and just, keep it super simple and like things that I would like and hope that she likes them too.
What would the dessert be? I mean, it'd have to involve juice somehow.
Well, actually for dessert, I would probably do either something banana or something with plantains.
Because you
or even both.
Now you made me want bananas so badly, and I love plantains, and I haven't had a whole lot of like dessert plantains. So
I've actually had a sundae with caramelized plantains and banana gelato. This was probably what I was thinking of when I thought about making something with banana ice cream and then like caramel sauce, and
oh my god,
there might have been nuts on it. I actually don't remember if there was nuts, but like the whole combination of just like banana and banana like different ways and different temperatures, textures. Like I'm all about it. It was great.
Okay, so on this cooking show too, you're going to be doing the bananas and plantains of the world as we're going around doing this.
Yes, because once I've learned that there's so many different strains of bananas, I'm like, why do we only have one here?
The monoculture, it's terrible.
Why?
There was just recently something with bananas about like bad batches or something because of the stupid monoculture, and it's so frustrating. I want to try different kinds. And
it's true.
Yeah, because I have a difficult time like gut-wise with a certain amount of carbs. Like I eat a fair amount of plantains. So we got to have more of those various kinds.
Well, I even feel like things like that is just due to the way that we industrialize our food in this country.
Oh, yes.
Like if we're going to dive that into that like really quickly, like I have a niece that has like a lot of allergies, and even finding out about different allergies and things like that, and understanding that it's pretty much for the most part a first world problem. So like maybe we should start looking at the way that we raise and produce our food.
Hugely. And I think there's a big story to be told there in pastry with this, especially with grains, especially with all and fruits and all of these things.
And it was really interesting traveling with her, because when we were in France and we were at a bake shop and we were trying to ask if there was nuts in certain things, and the person said no to this one particular dessert, and I knew traditionally in French culture like that has a nut flour in it, and I looked at my niece, I'm like, don't get it, because I didn't want for her to like have a reaction, and then she ended up getting absolutely nothing at the bake shop, so then I felt bad. But it's tough. And it's, it's not just the U.S., it's also the U.K. and just certain industrialized countries where this is a huge problem. And it seems to be less of a problem in other places. So it's, maybe we should start looking at how we do things.
I want your bananifesto on this. I just feel like you can solve all the problems in the world this way.
It's true. Yay. A lot of them, at least.
Yeah. Final question.
Yes.
You have 5 uninterrupted minutes for self-care. What do you do?
5 uninterrupted minutes. I'm probably stretching.
Yeah. What's your stretch? It's a back and neck,
my legs usually.
Okay.
And specifically, like, my calves have been super tight. So, like, I've recently, alongside with my dance cardio, I have been also doing where I go. They also have what they call flex, which is similar to yoga. So I've learned a few poses. So I'll probably do like a few like pigeon poses and lizards and just trying to
in the kitchen.
I'll do it in the kitchen. I actually have stretched in the kitchen. I've actually been stretching and had someone come around the corner and get like frightened and like, Jessica, what are you doing? And it's just like, my legs are tight.
Oh my God. Well, I hope they joined you for stretches too.
Usually not.
Oh,
it's okay though.
Oh my gosh. It's been such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh. I felt so dorky just like slipping into your DMs, but
you really shouldn't.
But the dessert was it really did make such it was emotional. It was a beautiful thing and a perfect cap to a really important meal. And I can't stress enough how much people need to go and see this exhibit when it comes in 2020 at MoFad.
100%. I hope to be more involved with it, and it's super important. Like if, the donating, the just making people aware that this is even happening, like it's a really, really big deal. And
there's a Kickstarter right now. It might be done by the time this airs, but they're trying to get, was it the Ebony Test Kitchen? Yes, moved from, I think, is it Chicago or something, but what they're trying to preserve this, basically. Yes. A really important piece of history. So go MoFad. I think they have a fair amount of information on their site.
They totally do. I was actually looking at it earlier today. All the information's there. 100%.
And maybe, I don't know if it's going to tour after this or not, but it's so important. And I'm so glad you're a part of it. I'm so glad I got to eat your food that night and to get to sit down with you today. And then, yay! So people can find you on social at I love your handle.
DA Chocolate Chef.
Yay.
84.
Yay. And really stalk her on Instagram. It's beautiful. You get to see beautiful works in progress and trips and all this. And
thank you.
And they can come and eat your food at L'Artusi. They can have your ricotta.
Yes. Lots of ricotta. Never worked at a restaurant that sold more cheese than we do.
Oh my God. So go eat her cheese and learn from her and maybe have a dance party.
Yes. We're always playing good music.
Yay. Well, thank you so much to Jessica, and thank you to our producers, Jennifer Martinick and Hallie Tarpley. Thank you to Douglas Wagner for our delightful theme song. And you know what? If you liked listening to this podcast, it would be really amazing if you would tell people about it. If you would find it in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever it is that you get your podcast, and those stars and those reviews, they really help people find us. That algorithm, the cursed algorithm, it actually can work in our favor. And if there are people you want to hear from, if there are topics you want to hear about, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm Kitten with a Whip on Twitter. I'm findable. Just let me know who you want to hear from. Maybe stuff I don't know about. Like, let me in on it, and we'll try to get that person into the studio. And you can find out more. You can go to foodandwine.com. You can see the videos there. You can go to Food and Wine Pro, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll never miss an episode of this. And the most important thing, take good care of yourself until the next time. Maybe have a little dance party and bananas.